Hey everybody, I'm Dom, and this is Dom-Ination. I'd like to start off today's review by asking one simple question. What the hell happened to Prince of Persia?
Seriously, this series was such an innovative series, with the original game back in 1989 being the first to introduce rotoscoping to the video game industry, as well as being almost completely made by one person, that being Jordan Mechner, and the Sands of Time trilogy introducing the groundbreaking rewind time mechanic. But these games weren't just innovative, they were actually good, and they still hold up well today. The gameplay was incredibly fun and addicting, and even though the stories in the original three games weren't that good, the overarching plot in the Sands of Time trilogy actually was really good. In fact, the first game in that trilogy, called Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, had such a good story that Jordan Mechner felt it worthy to turn into a movie. So he wrote the script, and Disney, of all people, picked the project up, assigning it to Jerry Bruckheimer of Pirates of the Caribbean fame. Unfortunately for Mechner, Hollywood had someone else come in and completely change the script. It wasn't that kind of stupid. That's like if J.K. Rowling wrote the screenplay for Harry Potter, but some pretentious ass came in, changes it, as if to say,
Yeah, I know you're the creator of Harry Potter and everything, but I just know that I could write a better script for Harry Potter than you could, 'cause I'm just so freaking perfect.
And I know that adapting one form of media into another is extremely hard to do, and when it comes to turning a video game into a movie, it almost never works. But Jordan Mechner actually did study film and knew what he was doing when writing a script. So if anyone could have made a great video game movie, it's him! But alas, it wasn't to be, and we have a different screenwriter for this movie. The movie itself came out in 2010 and starred Jake Gyllenhaal and Gemma Arterton, and directed by Mike Newell. It received mixed reviews at best and status of not very good at worst. But the question does still remain. Is Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, the movie, good? Well, let's find out. This is my review of Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, the movie. Okay, I'm just going to get this off my chest right off the bat. From an adaptational standpoint, this movie is definitely not the strongest. That being said, watching it again, I'm actually surprised by how many elements of the game were shown in this movie. But before we get there, let's sum up the plot. The film begins with a flashback to our main character, who's named Dastan for this movie, and his childhood and how he was taken in by the king to become a Prince of Persia after seeing the boy outwit his soldiers in an attempt to escape from a crime. Oh yeah, a completely legitimately reasonable reaction to a crime, I must say. The film then cuts to years later where Dastan is grown up, and it's apparently discovered that their neighboring city, called Alamet, is dealing off weapons to their enemies. So to stop them, Dastan and the Persian army invade the city and come across a mystical dagger, which was apparently being smuggled to safety. So to commend the victory of the Persian army, the king decides to throw a victory feast in congratulations. Here, Dastan was given a robe by his brother Tuss to give to his father as homage or something like that. But get a load of this crap. The robe was poisoned and it burns the king to death, making everyone believe that Dastan assassinated him. But with the help of a really hot princess called Tamina, who should have been called Farah, but we'll get to that later, Lee Harvey Dastan escapes the city with the Persian army right on his tail. Soon it is discovered that the dagger Dastan acquired during the invasion is in fact the Dagger of Time. With one press of the jeweled pommel, and you can turn back time for 1 minute. Later, it is revealed that the real culprit is actually his uncle Nizam, and the Dagger of Time isn't the only flux capacitor in Persia. It turns out that beneath the city of Alamet, there's a huge sandglass holding the Sands of Time, which, if released, will not only turn back time, but will cause the destruction of the world, or some crap like that. I don't know. Nizam wants to use the Sands of Time to turn back time to become the king of Persia without his brother or nephews getting in the way. So it's up to Dastan and Tamina to get to the sandglass, defeat Nizam, and save the world. I said earlier that from an adaptational standpoint, this movie isn't very good. And that's because the entire plot that I just described to you is not the plot of the original game. In the game, the story is about the arrogant prince, who, again, doesn't have a name in this game, so everybody just calls him the prince, using the dagger of time to unleash the sands of time from the hourglass of time after being goaded into it by the vizier. This unleashes sand monsters all over the place, and the prince is spending the entire game trying to get the sands of time back into the hourglass. In this movie, the plot is basically your standard fugitive story. Guy gets wrongly accused and has to go clear his name while also on the run. We've seen this plot a million times and it's really getting old. But its clichédness isn't the only reason I like the game's story better. I like the game's story better because, well, the cause of it is just better. In the game, I get the sense more that the prince is going on this journey to fix his mistake, right his wrong. Whereas in this movie, he's going on a journey to clear his name and make himself innocent again. So you got one version saying, yeah, my bad, let me fix it, and another saying, I didn't do it, it wasn't me. And I feel like the game just had a more noble sense about its cause. So what else don't I like about it? Well, I hate that they changed Farah's name to Tamina. I actually read somewhere that the reason that they did this was because the character of Tamina was not in any way similar to the character of Farah. And I would understand that claim if it was actually true. Tamina is literally the same character as Farah. Her story is the same, her relationship with the prince is the same, her personality is the same. Hell, even her death is the same. So why the hell was it so necessary to change the name of this character? Also, there were some scenes in this movie that are just flat out pointless. Primarily the ostrich race scene. Why did this have to be in there? You could have cut it and not changed a thing. Also, funny thing about this is that I actually played Sands of Time after first watching this movie. I played Warrior Within, The Two Thrones, Forgotten Sands, and heck, even Prince of Persia Classic before, but not Sands of Time. So when I finally did play it, I found myself saying this at the halfway point. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing any goddamn ostriches. You see any ostriches? I don't see any ostriches. And I found that to be extremely distracting for me. Okay, so that's pretty much my bad stuff. Let's look at the good stuff. Starting with this movie's greatest strength, its action. Yeah, this movie has some of the coolest action scenes ever, particularly the parkour stuff. Parkour was always the most fun thing to do in Prince of Persia games, and even though we can only watch it instead of control it here, the scenes were still incredible. In fact, some of these stunts were even better than the ones in the game. If there was any complaint I had about the action, it would be that the sword fighting isn't really all that spectacular. It's just standard attack, block, with not a lot of thought put into it. But then again, I always thought that the combat was the weakest part of Sands of Time anyway, so in a way, the movie actually captured the spirit of the game. What else do I like? Well, believe it or not, I actually like the performances in this movie. Jake Gyllenhaal, despite not being Persian in any way, shape, or form, gets the happy-go-lucky and snarky nature of the prince, and Gemma Arterton gets the feistiness and wisdom of the Farah/Tamina character down. Also, Sir Ben Kingsley as the Vizier/Nizam in this movie, I thought was a cool villain, being very manipulative and cunning. And even though this character wasn't in the original game, I really liked Alfred Molina as Sheikh Amar. He cracked me up every single time he was on screen.
He has to be stopped. He has to be stopped. What? Oh. A knife thrower with a conscience.
Also, this might be a shock, but I actually thought the romance between the prince and Farah, Dastan and Tamina, was actually done better in the movie than it was in the game. In the game, the prince and Farah start off as hating each other, him hating her because she was the enemy, and her hating him because he's an arrogant git who almost doomed the world. Later in the story, they do in fact fall in love with each other, but it really comes out of nowhere. In the movie, they still hate each other at the beginning, but they gradually grow more closer to each other, and you kind of just buy it a little better. Sure, the chemistry isn't the best, but it's still better than, I hate you, go away, 1 second, and then, I love you, kiss me, the next. And even though the basic plot of the movie wasn't correct, there were scenes in it that actually were. The raid on the city, escaping the palace, the grand rewind, that's all good. And as a movie, I guess it's enjoyable enough. It's a fun little adventure for the family to enjoy. If you're a fan of the game, you're probably not going to like this movie. It doesn't do the game any justice, and for that reason, I can't like it as much as I could have had I not played the game. But if you haven't played the game and you're looking for some good action, check this movie out. You might find yourself pretty entertained. Just don't expect them to make the sequel Warrior Within anytime soon. And that ends today's video. Thanks guys for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have any ideas on stuff you want to see me do in the future, comment below to let me know. Make sure you like the video if you liked it, favorite it if you loved it, and subscribe to Dom-Ination if you want more of it. Once again, I'm Dom, and this was Dom-Ination. See you guys next time!